Welcome back. Today we're talking Rush. Now this is one of my top 4 rock bands, not just because it's one of my favorite bands, but I mean it is my channel and I get to choose them. But they are one of the most reacted to bands, and how much is that because of the choices that YouTube makes for me when I see reactions? I don't know. But I know a lot of the main people who react to classic rock spend a lot of time with Rush, and for good reason. They are one of the best bands out there. They are one of the most fun bands to watch in concert. They were, their genre was fantasy rock, progressive rock, space, and just virtuoso playing. It's a 3-member supergroup. Rush was Neil Peart. You almost have to name him as the top member of the band, although they were equal. They were definitely equal. This was a very democratic band. Neil Peart was the premier percussionist in rock and roll, and particularly in progressive rock and roll. He also did the vocals. Known as the Professor, he was a very smart, very well-read person, and he came up with a lot of the ideas for like the fantasy aspect of some of their music, or a lot of their music, I should say. Then there's Dirk, or Geddy Lee, bass player, bass master, and also did synthesizers and keyboards and vocals all at the same time. So, this guy was a multi-instrumentalist. He is just an incredible musician. I love to watch him play and listen to him. And then a lot of times we'll introduce the guitarist first because they're the most well-known. Well, Alex Lifeson Lurkst is one of the most underappreciated guitarists, at least was. I think with some of the resurgence and interest in classic rock, he's getting a little more of the attention he's due. A lot of their music, or at least the early music, when they didn't put limits on how long they'd play, they had some very long songs, and they were written with a lot of changes in them, or transitions, as a lot of the reactors like to call them. These were because some of these songs were written as if they were symphonies. They were stories to be told. The musicianship was, like I said, always top-notch. They started out in the early 70s. First album they put out was actually not with Neil Peart. It was 4 months before Neil Peart joined the band. Self-titled album, Rush, and Working Man is still one of the most reacted to songs they do. It was their first hit on the song. So if you want to listen to that one live, if you want to watch it live, I would say maybe the 2011 Cleveland concert and the R30 tour from 2004 are very good versions of the song. But the 2011 Cleveland one, a lot of people react to that. And the only reason I really mention this is because it starts out with some liberties they took with the rhythm and style. So if you want to hear the way it came off the album, you need to listen to the album or go to the 2004 version. In 1975, they released Fly By Night. This was very progressive, and where the first album was more rock and roll, this one was very much more progressive, had fantastical and philosophical songs, and they were long songs. Bytor and the Snow Dog, or Bytor and the Snow Dog in Rio is a song that was originally 8 sections that was reduced to 4 minutes live in Rio. It's a very good version of it. So if you really just can't sit through long songs, maybe that's a good live one to start with or to react to. Fly By Night is another good song from the album that's easily listened to. And the thing about Rush, different from Pink Floyd. Not all of their stuff needed to be was a concept album. It didn't need to be listened to all at one time necessarily. Some of the earlier albums are best left that way, though. 1975's Caress of Steel had a lot, was one of those, and it was their least successful album. It was one that they, if they didn't like an album, it was probably that one. But the Fountains of Lamneth are still are incredible to listen to now. It's like I said, it wasn't necessarily radio material because it took a full side of an album. Bastille Day, I think, is one extremely good song. Lakeside Park, also a very good song. Necromancer is a 12-minute, very deep progressive thing. But yeah, the album is not as bad as people like to make fun of it as, in some circles. But, when you're Rush and all of your albums are good, then, you've got to have one that's least of. But even the band felt this way, like I said, to some degree. And the label was ready to get rid of them after this, after really poor sales and an inability to really tour it into success, I guess you could say. So they were on the precipice of losing their contracts and everything. So they say, we're still not going to play what you want us to play. We're not going to bow down to the man, And so in 1976, they released 2112. And incidentally, for those of you who see this and are going to react, it is pronounced 2112, not 2112 or 2112. Yeah, I've watched you. I've seen you do it. But side one is 2112. It's 7 parts, and it's a story. You really can't break this up. When you decide to dive into a deep Rush song, maybe you've done some of the more radio-friendly later songs on your channel and want to get into something deeper, this is the one to do it with. Everybody loves it. It's their breakout side. If the album had just been released with just that one side, it still would have saved the band. But there's another side to it, and it's the other side is shorter, more rock purist type songs. In 1977, they released Farewell to Kings. It had some long songs on it and some short songs, things that could be promoted a little easier. And there's a couple of particularly good reactable songs that to be honest, until I started watching reactions, I had never seen the videos on these. That would be Xanadu and Closer to the Heart. I think there was on a live version. But it was their first top 40 album in the US and the UK. So people were noticing now, and that was getting them ready for, the first time I saw them was on the tour for the next album. That was 1978's Hemispheres. Hemispheres had Cygnus X1, which was Book 2, which was a continuation from the previous album, which left off with Cygnus X1, Book 1, which, yeah, if you want to put a cliffhanger on the end of an album, I mean, nobody does that. This was something definitely that only Rush would do. But they have also on Hemispheres was The Trees, which was, I loved that song growing up. I don't know why. Maybe it's the tree hugger in me or something. I don't know. La Via Strangiato, which that, by the way, is the correct way to pronounce it, means the strange village or weird city. That's one of the rare songs that I say watch a video of it rather than listening to the studio version. Studio version's great. I love the whole album. But when you see them play this, that's really when you get a feel for what Rush can do. Yeah, it's the official video. It's the one that everybody pretty much reacts to. So you're not likely to get pointed in the wrong direction by your Patreon viewers or whoever's guiding your reaction channel. It's a 12-section song. It's based on a series of dreams or nightmares that I don't know if it was all three members' dreams or if it was just lyrics. But yeah, it's based on dreams, and they actually got in trouble on this song for a part of it that sounds kind of cartoony. Well, they kind of borrowed some and got a little in trouble on that one, but they settled it. Like I said, these are nice guys. 1980 brought, a different sound, a little bit of a different sound, a little more radio friendly and radio hits with permanent waves. Spirit of the Radio and Free Will are both extremely well redone with animation and lyrics on it that a lot of people react to, and they're both very good songs. Spirit of the Radio is, I've heard it referred to as, if you wanted to play one song to introduce somebody to rock and roll who had never ever heard rock and roll, you'd pick Spirit of the Radio. And I can't really complain. I can't really say no to that. Jacob's Ladder is a very good progressive type song, and Natural Science is a three-parter, and it's in the same vein. Anytime you say it's a three-part song, it's going to be progressive. Now, Moving Pictures in 1981, they had had a couple of radio-friendly or radio-length hits, and I really love this album. But there is one thing I should warn you about. When you when you get requests for Rush reactions, and they say, watch the best intro ever, that's out of a concert, and it's the introduction to Tom Sawyer for that concert. And it's a medley of a lot of different Rush songs. And because of that, I kind of recommend that when you listen to Tom Sawyer, or you listen to it, if you want to listen to it live, listen to it from a different concert. Just because if you haven't heard any other Rush, then all those songs getting blended together aren't going to bring the same kind of joy they will if you wait and watch that later. So just my 2 cents worth. One of my favorite Rush songs is on this album, though, Red Barchetta. There's excellent live versions. But the studio version is still my favorite. YYZ is reacted to a lot, especially from the concert in Rio. And I can't really say anything to dissuade you from that. It's an extraordinary concert, and a lot of that is just from the sheer audience reaction and participation. Limelight, also very good as far as radio play. And Witch Hunt, also one of my top Rush songs. I think it's really deep, and there's a lot more there than what you hear if you listen hard enough. 1982 was Signals. A couple of standouts on that one is Subdivisions and the Analog Kid. Analog Kid, there are a couple of really good live versions of that. Definitely not going to steer you away from it. Also, The Weapon, which I think is extremely, it's part of a series of songs that they made through several albums that were kind of dystopian or just deep social commentary. But The Weapon, New World Man, and Countdown. Countdown I also think is a really fun song from Rush. 1984, you had Grace Under Pressure with Distant Early Warning, another part of that series of songs. And Between the Wheels, which I think is really good live. I think it's on a couple of the DVDs. 1989 was Presto with Show Me Don't Tell Me, or I think it's just written Show Don't Tell, and Superconductor. Superconductor is a really fun song as well. It has a really great beat, and there kind of gets away from the excessive synthesizer or 80-ish feel that some of the earlier Rush had begun getting associated with. 1991, another one of my top albums, Roll the Bones. The title song is just a fun song. You're going to enjoy that, whether you listen to it live or studio. Where's My Thing is an instrumental. I mean, for as long since Rush had so many long songs, and some with really long instrumental parts with very little words, you'd think that they'd have more songs that were just purely instrumental. Well, this is one of the few, actually, or only 2 or 3 that they did. And Heresy, another great song in that string of songs of, that was going through the several albums. 1993 was Counterparts. After several years, a couple of years of just not producing anything, kind of taking a break there, Stick It Out and Leave That Thing Alone, another instrumental. So that's 2 albums in a row that they did instrumentals on, where they, like I said, they didn't typically do songs that were purely instrumentals. So 1996, you had Test for Echo. Title song is very good. In Resist, that's done acoustically by on, let's see, which, I forget which DVD it's off of, but I'll put it down here. Other albums by Rush, and we're just going to go through these by album because, you know, there's great songs on all Rush albums. You're not going to find a whole lot of songs where you just come away saying, you know, that was okay. There's not a lot of Rush like that. But outside of the classic era, we're talking 2002's Vapor Trails, 07's Snakes and Ladders, 2012 Clockwork Angels, and there's like 12 concert DVDs from 1981 to 2015, and there's just so much good live music, and Rush was such a good live band that, you know, they made a lot of people, they may not have had the biggest fan base in the 70s when they were doing their best stuff in 80s, but, you know, they've emerged as becoming like some of the greatest musicians of rock and roll and most respected, and I think you won't find a lot of musicians who would disagree with me on that. So, you know, enjoy this trip down the rabbit hole and let the good times roll.